9th. We will start with the roll call, but first I just take a moment to welcome our newest member, Vince Loyal. Vince, welcome to the group.
Thanks. Looking forward to it.
Hello, Vince.
Hello, Vince.
Look forward to working with you on this and many other issues. And for the next 20 minutes, we want you to give your life story. No? Okay.
Thank you. I just completed a 2.5-year mission of working with the city as on the town center update team, and enjoyed that very much. And the mayor fortunately saw fit to fill a vacancy on the Board of Public Safety. I had the good fortune of working for a long time with John Bradley, another member of this team. I was with Metro West for 36 years. The last 12 years of my career as the chief of the district. So looking forward to adding whatever I can to this organization and hoping we can move it forward.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Happy to have you. So with that, Michelle, would you mind calling the roll?
Sure. Marshall Scott Collier.
Here.
Board member Jeff Baker.
Here.
Board member Vince Loyal.
Here.
We have Denny Welker is absent. Captain Mundell.
Here.
And council member Dave Bertolino.
Here.
And looks like we have John Bradley
Yes.
and Sergeant Windley. All right, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. So first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the last meeting. I hope everyone had a chance earlier to review them. Does anybody have any objections or corrections they would like to make? Seeing and hearing none, I will presume that everyone concurs with the minutes, unless someone raises their hand. Nope. Okay, so be it. The minutes are approved. Next arena is public comment. Michelle or Rick, do we have anyone in the queue?
We have Tim Donzie in the as an attendee. I don't know if Tim's on to make a public comment, but I guess if he is, if he can indicate his desire to make a comment, that would be fine by raising his hand. If we don't see any indication from Tim, that's what he's.
No, he says no comments at the moment. So, okay, I think he's here to listen and maybe participate on the deer management plan. So, anyone else? That's it.
Looks like it. Yep.
Okay, very good. Do we have anything for information?
No, sir, we do not.
So, all right, moving on to old business, and that is the deer management plan. So again, I hope everyone had an opportunity to review the lengthy memorandum and report. I think it is rather detailed. I would like to take a moment to thank Rick and Michelle and the team at the City of Wildwood, the police department, Captain Mundell, and Brad for all of the work that they have done, not the least of which was the deer survey. It's important to have that starting point so you know where you're at and where you're headed. So with those thanks, and thanks to everyone else for all their participation. Tim Donzie, I know he's in the audience. He's participated in a few meetings. We've gotten a lot of good public comment. We've had comment from others, but here we are with what I think is a pretty good draft. And so with that, Rick, I'll turn it over to you.
That will be fine. I did put together a memo, if you happen to notice, tried to summarize as best I could kind of where we're at with the plan. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was appropriate to at least point out, as you referenced, the deer population study that the Wildwood Precinct completed for us earlier this year. I don't know that we brought that information directly to the Board of Public Safety, but I felt like that might be worth a mention on its own accord. So if you want to talk about the deer population study, we could certainly do that. The numbers or the study itself was provided in my memorandum, I believe. The study that was completed was a follow-up to the initial study in 2018, which kind of led to the formation of the subcommittee, frankly. But it was much more extensive in terms of the geographic footprint that the Wildwood Precinct covered. Basically 5 times as large as what we did in 2018, the Wildwood Precinct did in 2018. So it was much more extensive and a much larger count. They broke out the city into 6 regions and covered about 30.5 square miles, not quite half the geographic footprint of the city, but a large portion of it. Boiled all those 6 regions down to, if you would like to do that, to one density for the deer population of 71.5 per square mile. The overall confidence band was 58.4 to 87.4, if I got those numbers right.
Mhm.
And for comparison, the number that we've been given through Missouri Department of Conservation of a historic number for the population and what it really should be or would have been prior to settlement was closer to 15 to 20 deer per square mile. So again, significantly higher than that historic pre-development average. So I'm gonna stop right there. And I guess if Brad, if you want to speak in more detail relative to the population study and the results, I think this would certainly be the time to do that if you'd like to add anything into that summary.
Yeah, the only thing that I'd like to point out is just to keep in mind that you're going to have higher densities in certain areas. So these numbers, the 58 to 87, that's an average over the 30 square mile area. So just be mindful that obviously in some areas we're going to have a denser population. And so when it comes to management issues, especially relating to vehicle crashes, you're going to probably in the future want to focus on those areas where we have a issue with the vehicle crashes and a higher density of population as seen in the results of the study, the survey. So that's really the only thing that I wanted to point out so everybody understood that. But if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them for you.
And along those lines, there, as Brad said, there is a significant variability from each one of those 6 regions. So if you're curious, you can dive into those numbers and look at the difference. So the overall number is 71.5. That's the average for all 6 regions. If there's no additional comment relative to the plan, I think again it's an excellent work product in my opinion. And it does comprise a significant level of effort by the Wildwood Precinct. So I think it's a great starting point and a great benchmark to work from going forward, in my opinion. With that, I'll move into the overall deer plan, if you'd like,
Yeah.
Marshall.
Why don't we, take a look at some of the items and, the suggestions that we have for the plan and take it from there. Give a summary.
So I did provide, and I know that the Board of Public Safety as a entity has reviewed the plan once previously. Obviously, we do have a new member, and Mr. Loyal there, who has not been directly involved in it as of yet. But it has made its way to the board, I think last summer. After that initial review, it was submitted, just for your recollection, to the Admin Public Works Committee in the fall. They did raise a number of questions and concerns. And then immediately following that, we did the deer survey and then updated the population study over the last winter. So the plan that's in front of you has been revised, and I wouldn't say significantly, but it has been tweaked and revised relative to the comments that we received from the Admin Public Works Committee, and as well as the population study that was completed by the Wildwood Precinct. And then finally, we met with Aaron Shank with the Missouri Department of Conservation just last month to discuss the plan and to develop a goal that has now been incorporated into the plan of reducing the population to a number under 40 deer per square mile. So that is the goal that's been set up in the plan, which I believe was absent the prior time it came to the Board of Public Safety.
Correct.
And I guess I would add that, again, the thought here is this is a long-range plan to obtain this goal over many years, likely 10 years or thereabouts. In the large part, we would do that through increasing legal hunting within the city of Wildwood. We don't specifically promote a bait and cull program in the plan. It's more geared towards increasing lawful hunting throughout the city and possibly promoting managed hunts where that might make sense. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Marshall Collier if you have anything to add to it, or Brad, if you want to add anything further relative to the plan.
Brad, you want to have anything you want to add?
My mute button was stuck. Not really. I think overall it's a good plan. I think the important thing is, as Aaron reminded us, to keep our toolbox full and to have as many options for management at our disposal as possible in order to try and be as effective as possible with our program.
Agreed. And Erin Shank, she was instrumental in really helping us sharpen the focus, some of the focus here. Again, publicly, I just want to state my appreciation and our appreciation, for her input last time. Dave, please.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I really like the plan. I really thank all of you, and Brad, and all the people in Deer Management that's been working on this for so long. And I do think we have some very specifics in this plan that our residents are looking for. Number one, and two, what's the goal, and kind of how we're going to get there. If I'm reading this correctly, and Scott or Rick or Brad, correct me, but we're really putting most of the emphasis for the culling of the herds back on the residents by saying that you can combine acreage to get 3 acres, get approval of your HOA, and you can have an organized hunt within that area. And that really puts the onus on concerned residents that they actually can take action and do something about the herds in their area. Quite honestly, I don't see that a lot of HOAs will have the support of all their residents. It's going to be a tough one, a really uphill climb. But I don't know what else we could do. We can't infringe on the property rights of people. So I think we've done as best we can to focus our residents on what they can do to perhaps to cull the herd.
Right, and I think your assessment is pretty spot on. That we set some goals. We have a few strategies to try and reduce the herd. Not the least of which is trying to free up hunting. Proposing. Requesting a no feed ordinance, educating the community about this, and hopefully over time we'll begin to see a reduction. And the idea being that in the future, we would do another survey just to see how things are going. And of course, the city would have, if it's not achieving the goal, the city would have an opportunity to reassess and maybe decide if they want to do different activities that we're not proposing here, like more managed hunts or things like that. So we didn't think there was a whole lot of appetite for that in the community at this point. And like Erin told us, looking at the plan, she thought it was actually, pretty good considering the size of the area and what we're facing. So. Rick, anything else you wish to add?
No, I think that's accurate. I mean, from my perspective, I think it will require a continued and sustained effort. And if we're going to see the population diminish in the future, it is going to take some effort on the part of the board and the committee potentially to continue this effort moving forward and coming up with recommendations to encourage hunting, legal hunting as best we can. And we've got some ideas already that we've included in the plan relative to that. where we can reach out to property owners, make sure they're aware of the options that are out there for legal, lawful hunting on their property, potentially matching hunters with those property owners, so that we're taking advantage of opportunities to get hunters out in Wildwood, frankly, to help reduce the population in that manner.
Absolutely. So, I think we have some pretty good strategies in place for that. And the other thing is that, we're trying to counterbalance that with safety, for the community, for the residents, depending on population density. There are certain rules that are already in place that regulate the type of hunting that is allowed, where it can occur, so that people can't just do this, decide without still going through the process through the police department, to get things approved. And that gives the neighbors, an opportunity to know what's happening, in their neck of the woods, if you will. So, yeah, Vince, please.
Having come to this late, and I did look over the plan. It's very comprehensive. With the hunting that's being proposed, obviously that's going to be in some of the more lessly populated areas of the city. For the areas that have deer issues in the populated areas, is the thought that once the more rural areas have less deer, the deer that are in the populated areas will migrate to those areas, and that will, or are there other provisions that perhaps would address the issues in the more populous areas?
Well, I'm not an expert on deer migration. The hope is that as we get less deer, and what Erin from the state conservation department said, that the sweet spot, she was saying, appears to be somewhere around 40 deer per square mile, and that appears, in her experience anyways over the years, to be the level at which communities don't feel they're overrun by the deer. There's enough deer for people to enjoy, while at the same time you've reduced some of the safety hazards and some of the nuisance. The bottom line really is, you're not going to eliminate it, and nor is that the goal. The goal is to get it to a level.
The intent is not to have an archery hunt. I live in town center.
Right.
In the town center area, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are certain areas that, based on our current codes, they would not allow hunting. So in the neighborhood I'm at, it's a fairly dense population here in West Hampton Woods. And so the current rules in place would prohibit even property owners here from banding their property together to do that. But I think if the deer survey was correct, we see more the higher density populations in those less populated areas. Brad, if I'm reading that right.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay.
Yeah, it's there's some pretty dense population just from the actually from Highway 100 to the north off of West Glen Farms all the way up to Clayton Road and north of Clayton Road even. So even driving through West Glen Farms, it's quite densely populated. That southeast quadrant probably has the highest population in the city. So I don't know that we can, unfortunately, we can make that statement. So I do think there needs to be some consideration given to the more populated, densely populated areas residentially, and seeking out some type of efforts to address those areas. It's just not in the unpopulated areas where we're having the higher populations.
Yeah, no, and clearly in my neighborhood, we have them too. Dave?
Yeah, which brings up a communications issue, I think. And when you read the policy, we said that we develop an ordinance to change to allow combining of properties to reach 3-acre limit for archery hunting, subject to HOA approval if applicable and subject to existing hunting restrictions. I think somewhere in our communications, we have got to clearly map out for our residents what the hunting restrictions are, maybe a colored map that says, even if you're in this area, you can't combine 3 acres. It's not within the ordinance. or we change our ordinance and say, even though you are currently in an area that is restricted, maybe you can apply and say we can get a waiver, a conditional use permit or whatever, to hunt within this area. Was that, Scott, do you know, was that discussed? That aspect kind of discussed
Yeah,
at the
off and on. And I think we kept coming back to not necessarily feeling comfortable proposing that, given the density of the housing in these areas. The idea that you got a crossbow, it can travel pretty far. It's gonna, it would create safety issues. And I think the goal of this plan is to try and come up with things where we start with a somewhat, some aggressive moves to promote hunting, particularly in those areas, to see, okay, so is this going to work? Because there are more aggressive things we could go after, but they also cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, I think we wanted to start, the idea I think here is to start with some very good ideas to promote hunting, particularly in the areas that can accommodate it. They're easy reaches, and probably won't have a lot of opposition among homeowners, particularly when we open it up to people who may not hunt themselves but have large tracts of land and realize, hey, we can get together with the neighbors and allow hunting, right? And so so we have certain rules around that already. If we allow that, I think that sort of activity will yield some results, but I can't guarantee it. And I think after going through all this, it's kind of where we landed to try and reach a balance. And like I said, 2 years from now, I think is really when you're going to have to make an assessment. I think a year is probably too quick because the populations can vary on their own. I think 2 years out might be the time to think about it and see where we're at and see what the levels are, and maybe people are happy with the progress, and we see where it goes from there. But it's a tremendous starting point. It involves all of the community from an education standpoint. And Dave, to your point in particular, I think that's an excellent idea, is to sort of graphically show people, hey, this is generally where this would be allowed.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe if some people say, hey, I want another way, well, you know what? That might be something, that council wishes to address, to allow some. But for now, I don't think we did not reach any consensus around that idea ultimately.
Which, if I may, Scott, Rick, I think when this is presented to the Edmond Public Works, I think a graphic of that kind would be very helpful, especially to the new members of the committee who aren't aware, and it probably won't go delving into the hunting restrictions that we have, or the hunting regulations. I have a map that says, according to our current regulations, here are areas that are too dense, and we have the distancing and all that kind of stuff. That would be helpful to sell this to the Edmond Public Works.
Good idea, Vince.
Just a quick question. On the 3 areas of public land, Babbler, Greensfelder, and Rockwoods, are there currently hunts allowed there?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. There has been for some time managed hunts on Rockwoods and Babbler, and then this last winter, St. Louis County did allow a managed hunt in Greensfelder, from what we understand.
And is our recommendation planning or asking to expand in those areas where we know hunting would be safe and there's a high population? Or just maintain the same or continue?
Continue. If I remember, Greensfelder is a county park. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right, Rockwoods, MPC.
Yeah, so we don't control, but we can ask, right?
No, suggesting that.
The idea would be to, consider maybe more hunting in those areas, if allowed. And of course, it has to be in accordance with, the Natural Resource Department rules statewide. And we did discuss things like, baiting and other things. And as we learned from Aaron, they do not, baited hunts have to be approved by DNR, and they have no plans to do so right now, nor in the near future. So there were some things that we had thought of, but we just are not available. Any other questions or comments? I think we have a pretty comprehensive plan. Unless someone has any other questions or comments, we need to decide whether to approve this and send it on to the Public Works Committee, I believe is the next part of the process.
That was my expectation. Yes, I think it should go back to Edmonton.
So I would entertain a motion to that effect. And then of course we'd have discussion.
So moved.
So moved by Vince. Is there a second? Jeff and Dave have seconded it. Okay, it's before us now is the question, whether to approve and send it to the Public Works Committee. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, I guess we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of approving the plan as drafted and forwarding to Public Works Committee signified by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? There are none. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. New business. So proposal of for security cameras in the community park. Rick,
Marshall, would you like me to introduce this one?
please.
I would be glad to do that, although I will certainly defer to Captain Mundell about this one. This probably could have been included under for information rather than for action, quite frankly. But we did want to present it to the board and essentially bring it and reintroduce the topic back to the Board of Public Safety, because a couple of years ago, this item was in front of the Board of Public Safety. At that time, we were looking at acquisition of security cameras, and we looked at City Hall as well as the garage across the street north of City Hall and Community Park as being the locations that were recommended for the installation of security cameras. Essentially, at that time, the decision was made to only go forward with installation in City Hall and the garage, and that project has been completed and is operational, and seems to be working well. And certainly Captain Mundell, the Wildwood Precinct, might want to speak towards that, but I believe it's operating quite well. And because that's the fact, we'd like to revisit the issue of installing cameras in Community Park for security purposes. We've had some recent incidents that kind of, at least from the basis of the Wildwood Precinct, I think, and staff have supported the need for security cameras at Community Park. And Captain Mundell, I believe, actually met today with our vendor that did the install earlier for City Hall in the garage at Community Park to start the process of getting a cost proposal on paper for further consideration. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Captain Mundell. If Captain, you want to add anything additional to that?
Not really. You did a good summary there. There was a recent kind of serious vandalism issue where a drinking fountain was knocked off the wall. So we really got nothing, and that was really the first time around when we discussed this. It's a park setting. It's usually nighttime. It's dark. Typically, people are probably on foot or on bicycle type of thing. We're obviously believing it's younger people. So they're not necessarily going to be in there parked in a car that we can come across the car. So, video is a great tool, to give us a direction of when things are happening, where people went, what they look like. It just helps us tremendously with the investigation aspect of it and trying to hold people responsible for what they do. So, that first time around, it was really part of the proposal, and it was taken off more as a cost saving thing, I believe. But we've looked at different vendors over the past several years, and we finally got something in place, up and running. Technology has improved just in that short time span also. So we're we're making that suggestion because frankly, the director of parks, wants options to try and prohibit some of this stuff, maybe deter some of this stuff just by the presence of those cameras. But if something does happen, it gives us a starting place and tools to work on that. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We're hoping that the board, is agreeable to this, and we can move this forward and put it in the city administrator's hands to move forward and make something happen with this. Get an install, purchase, that type of thing in progress.
Vince, please.
Quick question. I think it's a great idea. Would funding for this come from general budget prop fee money, or how's the funding work on the security component?
It is Prop P funding. I don't know if Rick or Dave wants to add to that. So there is funding available for it without having to dip into general revenue for this.
Okay. And also, when you met with the vendor, is the indication that it will be less than $10,000? Yes.
Yeah. He's not going to quote me a price, but he knew that that's where we were getting at. That if it's too involved or more than what we're looking for, then it's going to delay getting something solved. So.
Well, and that's my point is, are we obligated, if this is a separate project, to do competitive bidding, or is it dovetailed on a previous bid?
Well, it's an addition, and Rick may need to answer that, I guess, but it's obviously an addition or building onto the system that already exists. I would think any future addition, are going to be built on to what's already there. So it all ties together so that when you log into the dashboard that operates it, all the cameras are there. The software that runs it, meshes together.
You want to use the same system.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
A very, very good system, very high quality system. So I think we did due diligence in researching the product and the options that were out there. And I don't recall how many vendors came to us. It was 10 or 12 vendors. So there was quite a few options that we worked on pretty diligently to get the best.
Jim, I'm assuming most of the incidents we're talking about here are property crime, vandalism. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. If something more serious were to happen, certainly that park is the most popular park. There are a lot of people there. There's a lot of children there. It's right by two major highways. So, God forbid something, were to happen with a child that we would have nothing to get started on. So, there's certainly that avenue.
Dave?
Yeah, Jim, how many cameras were included in that rough estimate of $10,000?
Well, less than 10,000. He basically using the canopy there, the shelter where the restrooms and all that. That's the base of operations for that. So electrical resources, all that is in in a secure room there. I want to say that the cameras would be one camera that had like 4 angles to it, like a multi-head camera, I think is what he's talking about. We also talked about the parking lot. That may add to the cost. And then there was discussion about internet connections and things like that. So we really need to see what he's putting together as far as what are the options to make it work. Is there a cellular connection? Is there internet connection? Obviously you guys the city is working on internet resources. So that could make it better or worse depending on how things are available.
Yeah, Jim, Kevin, is there any chance that we could have full coverage of the walking path around the park?
Actually, the company that we use, Genetec, no. Is it Genetec, Brad?
That's the name of the software. It's
Okay.
Utilitra is the name of the company.
Right. I confuse them, and then the police department uses a separate, car video system, so I usually confuse everybody's names. This company, Utilitra, actually provides video services to the trail system, and he mentioned the name of a contact that Gary Cruz, our park superintendent, recognized that individual, and there are trail systems that have cameras on them. Obviously, that's you're talking a pretty big project there to start putting cameras along trails, but this company does that. So if that's something that would happen further down the road, we're already established the the basis for making that happen and adding to that system, which could encompass the trails also.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But for now, we're really just talking the facilities and perhaps the parking lot area.
Yeah, right.
Okay, somewhat limited. Okay.
Quick question. On those cameras, you said they can be added to. I guess they can all be updated as technology grows and gets better and faster. So it's got all the room for all that stuff up to a certain point, I guess.
And that's part of our, the infrastructure that they've already put in. That software is continually updated. If a camera goes bad, it's part of our service contract that the camera gets swapped out, pretty much immediately. So
I remember we talked about this probably several months back, but I don't have my notes with me because I'm traveling. But were these the cameras that you guys said you can pretty much real-time view from your cars as well if need be?
Not from the cars. It can be done from a cell phone, I believe. We generally don't do that because we're talking, about 20 or so cameras.
Yeah, I know we briefly talked about it a while back. I just didn't know, if somebody had a call, I think you actually mentioned you could pull something up and see it right away.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Vince.
And I have this question on a number of different items as we proceed. When these cameras are purchased, or the security system at City Hall or in the garage, does the ownership of this, is it the city or is it the police? Because it's Proposition P money.
So the Proposition P money is strictly city funds. So when that tax money is collected, it goes to the city of Wildwood. So the city actually owns them. We obviously don't operate them or handle the operation of those cameras.
So in general, as we move forward, anything that's purchased from Prop P funds, although it's probably utilized by the police department, the city maintains ownership of it. Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Any other questions about this memo or proposal? Rick, is this something you need us to approve, or is this just notifying us that this is going ahead or moving forward?
Well, I think at this point, that obviously we're still lacking a bit of information to really even request a formal approval. If the board wants to make a motion that we continue this effort and show your support, that wouldn't be a bad thing. But I don't at this point, I don't know that we need that. We just want to get the proposal from the contractor and see what we're looking at.
That's fine. I'm sure once you have the bids and everything in line, come back and then we can consider approval. From what I'm gathering, and so, speak up if I'm misstating this, but the consensus I'm hearing is that there's general support for the idea moving forward. If anyone disagrees with me, please let me know.
I support.
Yeah,
I think it's always good to have support from the entities as it moves forward.
yeah. So I think we just go on record as in support by we see. So
I
we'll see it again.
I was hoping for acknowledgement, approval of the Board of Public Safety, being that it'll, one way or the other, it's going to be in Mr. Cross's hands to follow through with a purchase.
Okay.
If we're stuck on $1,
Nope.
obviously, if it went over the $10,000, then I think we want to come back to the board to
Okay.
make official request to council, you know, as through their normal policy. But if it's less than that 10,000, I was hoping if they give us a bid tomorrow and Mr. Cross is within his authority, then I'd want him to proceed, and as opposed to waiting
That's fine.
for additional meetings.
It's a cheap insurance.
Yeah.
I
Vince?
would make a proposal that we support the initiation and process to, as recommended in the proposal for the security cameras in the community park.
Very good. Is there a second? I see a second. We have a proposal to support, as stated in the memorandum. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome. I see no other items on the agenda. Rick, is there anything else to discuss that you're aware of?
I don't believe so, Mr. Marshall. No, that was a very short and concise meeting.
Well, good heavens, 45 minutes. I don't think that's our land speed record, but it is pretty doggone close. So
I'd like to throw more or less for information. Last week, we, myself, Rick, Gary Cruz met with Department of Conservation. They're in the process of establishing a rock wall climbing facility, which is along Highway 109 at Christie Road. So we met with them talking, you know, basically safety concerns, traffic concerns. If you're familiar with that road and you're going southbound, it's very dangerous because you almost have to come to a complete stop in order to make a right turn, which actually almost ends up being a U-turn. So those are the things we're talking about. They're looking toward the fall, actually, before they open this up. So right at the moment, it's still in the planning phases. I'll throw it to Vince. Go ahead.
Was the fire district involved in those discussions?
Yes.
Just, they'll be the ones that have to lasso the folks off the rocks, so.
Absolutely. It's a little bit of a hike up in there into the wall. Apparently used to be a quarry back up in there, which is where the rock walls are. And there's an organization that comes in, kind of cleans the wall, knocks down any loose rock. They kind of implant steel rings into the stainless steel rings into the rock, so that, you know, a climber could hook onto and pull up or whatever. So I won't be doing it, but apparently there are people that really enjoy this. So they were pretty much.
My little boy loves that stuff. He'll be all over it.
Well, all right. Good luck. Right. Pretty much they're saying that this is probably one of the only attractions, as this will be, you know, kind of in this region. So they're really expecting it to have some great popularity. So, you know, we've already talked about, you know, what's the address, that type of thing. The property does have an address. So, you know, emergency locators, you know, things like that are already in discussion, and the fire district has been involved from what they told me. So more to follow, I guess.
Yeah.
great, thank you. Dave?
That I was just saying, Captain Mandel, that's within Rockwood Reservation, someplace.
Yeah, I guess it'd be on the kind of eastern edge along Highway 109.
Okay.
The roadway obviously comes into 109, and as soon as you turn down that road, the little gravel parking lot is right there. And then there's maybe a, I don't know, a half mile walk, up a trail that they're kind of improving that trail for walking. But you're back in the woods, and Rick and I can attest that the ticks are alive and well. So another reason why I wouldn't go up there, but I won't go up there again. I'll put it that way.
I think we all ended up with a good dozen or more ticks.
Oh yeah, it was.
Not good.
But yeah, if you go south on 109, you go down the steep hill.
Mhm.
Before Woods, there's a road called Christie on your right, and that's the turn you would make. And it's a very sharp turn to your right to get back into that parking lot.
Okay.
MoDOT was with us, so they're part of the discussion.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay. Hearing nothing, I'll declare this meeting adjourned. Again, thank you all for your time and participation tonight. Appreciate it. Dave, thank you.
Yeah, just thank everybody for making the adjustment to tonight. I appreciate that. I had a conflict tomorrow, so thank you very much for everybody.
Happy to do it.
Okay.
Happy to do it. All right. Thank you, everybody. And welcome again, Vince. We will see you next time. Rick and Michelle, thank you for your time and commitment. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Take care,
Thank you,
everybody.
Scott.
See y'all.
Have a good evening.
All right.
All right.
Good night.